This video is on humility. These are the absolute best verses in the Bible on humility. I'm using the 1984 NIV Bible. Have no false humility is the first subsection. It says, don't delight in false humility. This is Colossians chapter 2, verse 18. It says, do not let anyone who delights in false humility and the worship of angels disqualify you for the prize. The next subsection is be humble because others were or are humble. Matthew chapter 11 verse 29 says, be humble in heart. Jesus says, for I am gentle and humble in heart. Numbers chapter 12 verse 3 says, be a very humble man. It says, now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. The next subsection is be humble because God tests you through periods of humility. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 2 says, be humble. Moses says, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the desert these 40 years, to humble you and to test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. This is significant. I don't think anywhere else in the Bible does it say why God led the Israelites in the desert those 40 years. But here we know it's in part to humble them. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 16 says, be humble. Moses says, he gave you manna to eat in the desert, something your fathers had never known, to humble you, to humble and to test you, so that in the end it might go well with you. So again, I don't think it says anywhere else in the Bible why God sent manna. But here in Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 16, Moses is giving a summary and a history lesson, a recounting of what happened. And he says, God gave us the Israelites manna to eat, to humble and to test them, so that in the end it might go well with them, to humble them. The next subsection is be humble because otherwise God will humble you, / you won't be sheltered. Isaiah chapter 2 verse 11 says, be humble. It says, the eyes of the arrogant man will be humbled, and the pride of men brought low. The Lord alone will be exalted in that day. That day, I'm still not positive what it means, but I think it's referring to either the second coming or the exile. But it's a day of great pain and anguish, I think, from what I've read. It's not a good thing. You don't want to be humbled in that day. You want to already be humble. Isaiah chapter 13 verse 11 says, be humble. It says, regarding the day of the Lord, the stars of heaven and the constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. I will punish the world for its evil, the wicked for their sins. I will put an end to the arrogance of the haughty, and will humble the pride of the ruthless. In a time when the heavens and their constellations will not show their light, and the rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, I don't want to be humbled by God then. I want to already be humble. Zephaniah chapter 2 verse 3 says, be humble. It says, seek the Lord, all you humble of the land, you who do what he commands. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you will be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. So you, the humble of the land, seek humility. Perhaps you will be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. I want to be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. The next subsection is be humble for other reasons. James chapter 3 verse 13 says, no humility comes from wisdom. James says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. This is an incredible verse. If you want to be humble, if you want to know how to be humble, go to the wisdom section, go to the wisdom lesson. That's how. That's what this verse says. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 2 says, have humility. It says, with humility comes wisdom. So it's kind of vice versa too. Wisdom and humility go hand in hand. If you have humility, then comes wisdom. So again, check out the wisdom section. That's the key, potentially, to being humble. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 2 says, be humble in spirit. God says, this is the one I esteem. He who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. I want to be esteemed by God. This is how God esteems you, the one who is humble and contrite in spirit. Psalm 25 verse 9 says, be humble. It says about God, he guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. I want to be guided by God, and I want God to teach me his way. But that happens to the humble. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 34 says, be humble. Again, about God it says, he mocks proud mockers, but gives grace to the humble. Grace is one of the top 3 things you could ever want, maybe as a Christian, from God. He gives grace to the humble. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 5 says, clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. Peter says, all of you, clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God opposes the proud. James chapter 4 verse 6 references the same verse. He says, but he gives us more grace. That is why scripture says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. 2 Samuel chapter 22 verse 28 says, be humble. It says, David is singing to the Lord, and David says, you save the humble, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them low. God saves the humble. Psalm 18 verse 27 says, be humble. It says, you save the humble, but bring low those whose eyes are haughty. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 4 says, be humble, have humility. Humility, it says, humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor and life. Humility brings wealth and honor and life. Psalm 149 verse 4 says, be humble. It says, for the Lord takes delight in his people. He crowns the humble with salvation. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 12 says, be humble. It says, but I will leave within you the meek and humble, who trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel will... James chapter 1 verse 21 says, be humble. It says, therefore get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you.